the second last show of the Tipsy Realtor for season 5.
Season 5 is coming to the end.
It is
sadly.
coming to the end, yeah. Still cold too, that makes me really sad. But Sam's back because we are having a high-level talk about what to expect with your real estate lawyer, but we obviously need a cocktail first. And our cocktail today is called the Sky High Cocktail. Yep. So we are going to get that.
I feel like it's going to put us maybe a little bit in a kind of a summer mood.
I think so.
It looks summery.
Well, the ingredients are pretty cool. There's gin, coconut water, blue Curaçao, lemon juice. So that's pretty
very hydrating. I would say very healthy drink.
That's
very kind of healthy.
Okay, so you have to start with a chilled glass.
We use a martini glass. I feel like this could be a coupe glass too.
I'll be honest, I like the martini glass because it's blue.
Yes, it is.
And you have a shaker full of ice. And now we're going to start putting in our ingredients. So 3 ounces of coconut water, of course.
Yeah, make sure don't put too much.
Coconut water?
Coconut water.
Why?
Because you don't want to put too much coconut water. If you put anything more, it's like put some more gin.
3 ounces, and actually this one specifically called for aviation gin, and as a Ryan Reynolds fan, aviation gin I am good with. I know he doesn't own it anymore, but he is still their spokesperson.
It's spilling everywhere. You got a good idea. It's like, just step away.
They're making fun of me.
Spiller, she's not spiller talker, you spiller drink maker.
Okay, 3/4 of an ounce of blue Curaçao to give it the blue tinge, and 3/4 of an ounce of lemon juice. Now, as our guest here, Anna usually dances when we shake the martini glass. So
let's see your dancing moves. Yeah,
you're gonna have I'm gonna shake it. You have to dance.
Oh, sure.
All right, here we go.
I think lawyers can do it.
Let's
do it. Yeah. Our second last show. Are you shaking on the next show?
We always want maracas.
I still want maracas. It's been 5 seasons. It's still pretending. Yeah.
So we empty out our chilled glass and pour in our beautiful blue drink. Look at that.
Yeah.
That looks like a healthy lunch.
It looks pretty. Oh my God, to the rim.
To the rim.
All right.
All right. So we have everyone else's drink already made.
Here, Sam, I'll just pass it to you. So you can just, you go on. They're the same. Oh my God.
And I hate spills.
Spilly talkers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Well, they are pretty full drinks. Cheers.
I will say, keep in mind the amount of alcohol that was put in this one.
How much alcohol did you? I thought it was an ounce.
3.75 ounces in this.
Okay, it does taste like 3 ounces. I missed that part.
The 3 ounces.
And I was like, wow, that ounce of gin is really kicking.
Yeah. The coconut water actually is nice, and it is super refreshing, super hydrating.
Yeah. I think, not to sound weak or anything, but I would put less gin for this recipe. And I never say that.
Yeah. It's very refreshing.
Yeah. It deserves a better day.
Yes.
It does deserve a better day. Son, where are you?
Yeah, no, I do like it. So if you guys want that kind of like a light drink, light flavor, it has that coconut water sweetness, that natural sweetness, with a little bit of lemon juice, and it's not too much. So if you want it a little bit lemony, I would put more lemon. That freshness really comes through. You don't really taste much actually of blue Curaçao. It's just there for color, I feel like. But definitely makes it pretty.
But I would say, on a super hot day, that would be a dangerously refreshing drink.
Yes. Yeah, drink it like water.
You would drink it like water. It would be dangerously refreshing.
It should be called gin water.
Gin water. All right, so now on to our topic about what to expect from your real estate lawyer in a transaction. Now, you were telling us that this is your busiest time of year. Tell us about that.
The busiest time of the year. For whatever reason, people love to close the day the taxes are due, June 30th. happens to be
taxes?
well in
Never
Calgary,
thought
for
that
example.
way.
See,
I
you
don't
know
know why
what's-
they set it up like that,
Yeah.
but I feel like lots of deals get put together in the springtime, and June 30th is a logical time for people to close, just at the end of school, just before summer vacations begin.
So what we say in real estate is the reason why spring is so busy is because that's when realtors' taxes are due.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotta make the money. Well, homes look beautiful, everything looks nice in the spring, so.
Yeah.
I have no
Makes lots of
closings
sense.
on June 30th because
Good for you.
I thought it's gonna be a day off.
Yeah.
I was like, the lawyer's not gonna be working, so like we picked the day before, a couple of days after.
There you go.
Yeah,
Never a bad idea to set possession date not on the busiest day of the year,
Yeah.
because, everyone, the lawyers.
and not like
the
long
banks,
weekend,
they're gonna be
around
spec-
long
yeah.
weekend, right? Also,
Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us how this transaction starts. So obviously we start the transaction. It comes to your office when? Because it doesn't. People always think as soon as a contract is conditionally sold, you guys get a copy, but you don't.
No, not often. Sometimes we get looped in, especially if there's questions or if there's nuance where they want to have the lawyer's input before the conditions are waived. Oftentimes we'll be getting firm transactions, though. The conditions will have already been waived. We'll receive a full set of conveyancing documents from the listing brokerage with everything, the purchase contract, the notice of waiver, the amendments. And then, on a sale transaction, really for all transactions, the main thing that we're doing is we're assisting our client in fulfilling their contract obligations, while at the same time making sure that the party that's on the other side of that contract is also meeting their obligations. We're enforcing the terms of the contract. Right, so on a sale, it starts off with some pretty straightforward due diligence in terms of checking things like tax and title, making sure there's going to be enough money to pay out any, what we call them non-permitted registrations, financial encumbrances on title, things like, mortgages, unpaid condo fees, unpaid property taxes. Maybe the seller, has a court judgment against them and there's a writ on title that needs to be paid. Maybe there's some family law litigation that's been registered on title because there's a spouse that is contesting the disposition of the property. To deal with those items, and then in anticipation of closing on the sale, we're meeting with the client, signing the necessary transfer documents, getting those documents sent over to the buyer's lawyer, imposing trust conditions on them that they're not to use those documents until they deliver all the money to our office. And then afterwards, of course, we're making sure that we follow through and meet our clients' obligations by discharging things on title, making sure the real estate commissions get paid, that type of thing.
So we always get this because clients are always like, okay, well, who pays the real estate commissions? How are they paid? Where does a deposit go? How does that work? Can you explain that a little bit? Just because I know we get those questions all the time. And I always joke that there's a big bag of money. And then I explain to them where the big bag of money goes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, typically, take a market like now where deposits are quite high, often higher than total commissions. What will happen is the deposit will get paid to the listing brokerage, and then the listing brokerage will hold on to the commissions. And then they'll send the excess funds, really the excess deposit funds, to the seller's lawyer's firm, right, to hold in trust. And then on the closing day, we release those funds as part of the transaction proceeds to the seller, but we also notify the listing brokerage that the money that they have in trust can now be released to the agents because the deal's closed. And if the deposit were less, then the brokerage would be asking us to send additional funds from the proceeds to pay those.
And then we always have the clients ask, when should I get a hold of my lawyer? Do I have to call my lawyer and ask him if he'll be my lawyer for this transaction? And I always joke around, very rarely do lawyers say no.
Yeah, no, that's perfectly fair. We're not in the habit of saying no to transactions, right? We try our very best to keep capacity so we can always take more work. But I would say really as soon as you've got a contract entered into, if you've got, if you're on a sale and you've got a conditional offer that's been made, or you've got a purchase and you've got a conditional offer that's been accepted and you're confident that you're going to proceed, that's a great time to get in touch, to get the copy of the contract sent over, because we like it that way, because then we can get a placeholder file open, right? Even when the deal is conditional. It also gives us an opportunity to do a conflict search, because our law firm does a ton of work in Calgary and the surrounding area. So it does happen sometimes where a client will wait a little bit longer than maybe they should have, and then they'll get in touch with our office, but the other side has already retained us. And if the other side, if they're not comfortable with us working with both parties, then we're going to default to the person who contacted us
so the
first.
follow-up question is basically, when you do happen to represent buyer and the seller, you just need to get a permission from both sides to be represented,
Yeah, so
prior?
The way that we do it
how's
is we obviously need consent from all the clients that are involved. I mean, it's usually more than people expect because there'll be a buyer, there'll be a seller, but then often there's a lender as well.
That's right.
And
yes.
so, the lender for the buyer needs to be comfortable with the arrangement as well. It's myself and 2 other lawyers who work at the property law firm in Calgary, so we don't double end transactions as individuals. So I would never meet with both buyer and seller myself.
Okay.
We typically will assign the files to 2 separate lawyers so they get, independent legal advice as it pertains to the person that they're speaking with. But we don't have that same sort of confidentiality wall between the files that would exist if there were 2 separate law firms. So we do need their permission.
Yeah.
An
Just like what we
acknowledgement,
do.
that it's like a joint retainer.
Excellent. Yeah. And like one of the timing ones is like people is asking, some of them like really really organized, right? So they send everything off, everything is closed. I was like, okay, I'm ready to go sign documents with my lawyer. And like again, if you're on the selling side, usually it's a little bit easier because with the buyers it comes a little bit complicated because you guys waiting for mortgage instructions quite often.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, for a sale, as soon as the conditions are waived, really you can meet with the client to sign. Oftentimes we'll prefer to meet closer to the closing date, especially if there's months, because things like tax adjustments we'll want to make sure are done quite current, right?
Yes.
And it does give us an opportunity too, like on a sale, most people will have a mortgage that they're paying out. The bank is not going to tell us exactly how much the payout for the mortgage is going to be 3 months in advance. So I always prefer to meet with clients when I have enough information to give them, especially how much money we're going to be sending them afterwards, because that's usually what they're most interested in. Right?
Yes.
And then for purchases, yes, I mean, we need to receive the mortgage instructions before we can prepare the documents for the clients to actually sign. Some lenders are great and they'll send instructions 2 months in advance and we can meet them, well before the closing date. But the other thing to keep in mind too is we try to make it as straightforward a meeting as possible, and that's also the moment in time when we'll receive the client's balance of their down payment, right? And so often clients won't want to sign 6 weeks in advance if they've got a bunch of money set aside because it might be earning interest in their account and they don't want it to sit in our trust account for 6 weeks unnecessarily.
So those are all super great questions. We do get them all the time. The other one is that you adjust for taxes, but you adjust for other things as well, right?
Well, yeah, primarily so property taxes and condo fees. Those are the common ones. Homeowners associations fees, right? We'll get a lot of questions from people, especially early in the process, especially if they're organized, saying, should I be making an extra tax payment? Should I be, contacting the other side to reimburse me for half the condo fees or half the HOA? And the purchase contract that you guys work with does a great job of making sure that those items get adjusted for. It's just a matter of, letting the clients know that you don't need to worry about that. Taxes, condo fees, homeowners associations, that's all getting adjusted at closing. And same goes for rental properties, right? Like a lot of people who have rental properties, especially if there's a tenant that's living in there, they're thinking to themselves like, oh, well, I just agreed to a June 20th possession date. What does that mean to 10 days of rent? What does that mean to my security deposit? And the honest truth is that all of that can get accounted for at closing. You don't need to actually deal with that yourself.
What about utilities?
Utilities, no, we don't typically adjust for those on the statement of adjustments.
And who's responsible for utilities up until the day of
The
possession?
seller.
The seller, there you go.
Seller's responsible for things like taxes, condo fees, utilities, insurance up to and including the day of closing. And then the buyer is responsible thereafter, right?
Now, with the insurance, this is what I tell my clients all the time because we've come into issues with it, is just because your closing day is on one day doesn't mean it's always going to happen because sometimes there is issues. Sometimes things aren't done on time.
Yeah.
So I know the insurance company will always tell you to cut your insurance off the day of closing. I always ask you to keep it 7 days just in case.
It's a great idea, yeah. And the contract actually specifies for insurance, it's not the completion day, it says when the purchase price is paid. Absolutely. And of course that can be a couple days later, right? So we always advise our clients, don't cancel your insurance. Just wait. You'll get a final email from us on the closing day that says your sale is closed. When you get that, contact your insurance company, cancel.
Yeah, that's actually a good mental note for myself.
Now, here's another question, because this is always a question I get once they're like, okay, it's firm. So how far after possession do I get my money?
Oh, how fast? Yeah.
How fast?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
I say 4 p.m.
Yeah.
He gets in there. While your lawyer yell at him.
Before 2021, what we used to do is for transaction proceeds, we would actually cut solicitor trust checks that afternoon.
That's right.
We would take them to the client's bank and deposit them to their account. But the issue that we ran into is the bank started placing holds on
That's
paper
right.
funds.
Yeah.
And the holds were variable. They would be 3, 4, 5 business days. And it became very, very hard for us to tell us how long it was going to be. So as a firm, what we decided to do is to start sending all money by electronic funds transfer.
Yes.
Now, the only hiccup with the EFTs is that through our commercial banking, it takes 1 day to clear. Right, so for example, like we're going to have clients that are closing this Friday on a sale, and we're going to send their sale proceeds on Friday afternoon, but they're going to show up in their bank account on Monday morning.
And I will tell you, because I have had the same argument with my bank, which is TD, and I do like TD for me.
Shout out.
Shout out to TD, but they're the best of all the bad devils. And they have said because of the rising amount of frauds and check frauds and bank frauds that they have started really, really putting kind of clamps down on their holds and really enforcing their hold on deposits a lot stronger, because I know, like, I've been with them. They knew I was getting married before I did, so that's how long I've been with them and the kind of relationship I used to have with them, and why I was frustrated when they put a hold on a $5,000 check, and I'm like, come on.
Yeah. So, like, for example, like I always suggest to people who is like selling and buying, and they're like, we can do it with the same day. And I was like, well, you know, you really should talk to your lawyer, because they will know what kind of like banking institution, because everybody's a little bit different, how you process the money, what kind of lawyer you're working with, right? And I was like, you need at least give yourself at least a couple days if you want to do that cash to cash, you know, transfer without like interfinancing or something. And because like when people start like, well, how about next day? I was like, well, next day is better, but I'm still not sure.
I mean, in that situation, like there's the logistics involved with moving the money, but there's also the real risk that your ability to close, which hinges on someone else closing, is all of a sudden compromised.
Exactly. And then there's a penalty fees, obviously, that goes if your money doesn't arrive on the day you agree that it's supposed to arrive. And who knows what's going on the seller side, because they might have had to take your money and do something with that, right? So that's kind of where the problem is when you put such a short turnaround, cash to cash closing. And I want to actually bring up a walkthrough. Pre-possession walkthrough with you. So, because that's kind of like a one big deal. Like, as a lawyer, what would you say to the client? What's the walkthrough about, and how to handle it if something goes wrong?
Yeah, so
that's a great question.
Walkthroughs are wonderful. Question. Typically, in my experience, happening the day before, the evening before, right? Often we won't be there to answer phone calls at 8 p.m.
I was like, by the email, they can't show up in the morning.
There you go. I mean, what I tell buyers is, I mean, the seller's obligated to deliver the property to you in substantially the same condition as when the offer was made and accepted. All the attached and unattached goods that are listed in the contract are supposed to be in normal working order. So the appliances, you know, you want to make sure that everything is turning on and working. You want to make sure that there's no new damage. Unless it specifically says that the property is going to be vacant for the walkthrough, there's no obligation for the place to be vacant. And often I've had concerned buyers who have gone through a walkthrough and been like, well, this place will never be empty by 12 noon tomorrow.
Right.
And then, you know, the miraculous overnight move will occur, and it will be, right? So I always tell them, like, it might feel unfortunate, but, you know, if the seller is walking out at 11:55 a.m. with the couch and the door closes behind them, they've met their obligations. So don't be concerned if there's stuff in the property. But if there's damage, absolutely. Or if there's an appliance that's not working, or if something is missing, like a television that was supposed to be included. The best thing to do is to notify us as soon as you can. And the easiest way to do that is to take photos and then send us an email that evening. Right? And the first thing I look for every morning is issues for that day's purchases, right? Because that's my opportunity to fix them, because oftentimes what will occur is people will not check until later. Right, so a recent example that I have is a client who took possession of a property and then a couple weeks after closing decided to fill up the hot tub for the first time and discovered that it was cracked. Right, and now of course it's an older hot tub, but you know they're going to be understandably upset.
Right,
and it's unfortunate, but in that scenario, the seller simply says, "Well, I don't know what's happened since the closing day. How can I possibly be responsible for something that may have occurred in the past 2 weeks?" Right, which is, you know, not how we would like people to act if it was in fact broken and they knew about it, but disproving a negative is very difficult.
Actually, it's a very good question, because there are a few appliances that kind of time consuming to inspect. Like, what would you recommend for the buyer who is buying a house with a hot tub that is included?
And it's
Like-
I would always be skeptical when it's empty. Fill it
Yes.
up.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
so-
preferably
Yeah.
you get it filled for the home inspection if you have the opportunity
Right.
to have a home inspection. And then if you don't have an opportunity to have a home inspection, or if the weather doesn't allow for it to be filled up, then I would try and fill it up when you take possession. Like I feel like that afternoon, and it's tough too because it requires coaching. Like the clients themselves aren't going to think to do that,
Right.
But it's a great opportunity during the walkthrough and right after you take possession to test things, to make sure things are working,
Yeah.
make sure things are turning on.
But there
working
is
properly.
no really like.
And if they're not, don't
yeah.
wait a week.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, like well, let's say it is kind of like what's happened to be like a cold day or winter, like we cannot test AC in
Yeah.
the winter, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes the best thing we can do is the seller gives us a no, they promise it's working,
Yeah.
and then come spring it's not working.
Yeah.
Is there anything buyer in terms of can do besides probably going to like small claim court, or is it
we
even
try to-
is it even worth
Yeah.
it?
And as
Yeah.
realtors, we try to avoid our clients going to small claims court. So
Yes.
if there's a
Yeah.
way to rectify things without making them have to
Yeah.
take that, because let's be honest, it is time consuming and exhausting for
Yeah, it's
everyone but
expensive.
lawyers.
Yeah, there you go.
You know.
Well, I mean, the first step is to make the request, right? The first step is to outline the issue and
Right.
make a request for compensation, right?
Okay.
Or compensation for them to fix it. I always do that on behalf of my clients if it's an issue that they identify in closing. And I always tell them as well that my practice, I don't know if you can tell, I'm not the court lawyer,
Right.
it isn't litigation. And so, happy to reach out to the seller or the party that you think that has breached the contract to make the argument on your behalf that you're entitled to compensation legally. If they stick their fingers in the area or bury their head in the sand and refuse to cooperate, then your next step is to take them to small claims. And
Sucks.
yeah, the truth is, of course, that there's a cost-benefit analysis to go to that. And,
Right.
a lot of the times.
Sometimes buying a new
won't-
hot tub is cheaper than trying to collect on the repairs.
Yeah, and especially if it's an older appliance, what its replacement value is, whether you actually want it, whether you want the
Yeah.
headache of dealing with it. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to do one quick question and then we'll wrap up here because of
Yeah.
time. But we're coming into hail season.
Yes.
And this is a big thing for a
Oh,
lot
we
of
might have
people.
got past it. I'm just kidding.
I was like, really?
Hopefully.
No.
Just sit on my house.
Well, hail season always happens during Stampede, I thought.
Yeah, those are the big storms. in the
Yeah.
afternoon, yeah.
So we're coming into hail season. We get this all the time where people are saying, well, how can I sell my house? I just had a big hailstorm. I've got holes all through my house, through my siding. And even bigger now, which is even bigger, is that you really should check your insurance because your vinyl siding might no longer be covered.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer than living in a floodplain and getting flooded now, or having vinyl siding and having holes in your siding, or poly B is another one where if you get a leak from poly B, again, it might not be covered. So if there's an insurance claim and you're trying to sell your house, your possession's about to happen, how does that get dealt with? And here's another thing is that I've had come up is that clients think that they're going to get charged more to complete their transaction because there's hail damage. Is that always the case?
I think it depends on when it happens, right? So like if it's before the offer has been accepted and obviously the damage has occurred before the offer is even being made, it's very important that the insurance claim addendum that area has get appended to the contract and the proper information is input in there because if it's ignored, there's a good argument to be made that, well, you bought the property with the damage. We have no obligation to repair it because that's how you paid for it. Like, that's how you agreed to purchase it. More often, though, what occurs is that, the offer is made, it might be conditional, or the conditions may have been waived, and then the hailstorm occurs. And then the question becomes, well, who's responsible for it, right? And I mean, the seller bears risk to the property until the purchase price is paid. That's what the contract says. So if they're unfortunately unable to get insurance coverage, maybe they don't have insurance on the property. If they pay cash originally, then they would have to just repair it themselves.
So here's my question though. So sorry, here's the other thing is you talked about the area insurance addendum. And to understand what this contract is, it is an addendum to the contract, standardized, but it does state that if the seller is not able to repair the damage by a certain date, that this amount, which is usually the amount of the insurance claim, will be forfeited, and they usually hold it back, will be forfeited to the buyer. So what's a reasonable amount of time, and what's a reasonable amount of dollars?
Yeah, so a reasonable amount of dollars, I always look to the insurance claim if it's available for guidance, and that would be like the replacement value of the work that's in the insurance claim, which will have been prepared and approved by the adjuster. That's what I would put as the holdback amount. If it's not available, then I typically coach clients that we should be looking at an amount that's probably more than that, with an agreement that will adjust it down once the approved claim is available. And then in terms of the date, my preference, it would be nice perhaps if that rectification date wording wasn't in the addendum.
Yeah.
Because I can understand sellers looking at that and being concerned, like, wow, what if I do 90% of the work and then lose the money, right? So my preference is always to set it, I try to set it to December 31st of the following year. And that's a long timeline, and often buyers will kind of balk at that as well, because they'll be like, well, I don't want to live in a house for 14 months that's not been repaired. But of course that holdback, that's the seller's money. That's the seller's proceeds of sale. It's not their insurance proceeds, because oftentimes they're working with the insurance company's preferred contractor. So that's their money. They want the money, right? And so there's motivation there certainly for the seller to, galvanize a little action for the insurance company to get the work done as quickly as possible.
All right. Well, that's a lot of information, I feel like, today.
Yeah.
I'm
Yes.
I was like, I know most of it, and I was like, oh, this is still really good. Yeah, thank you so much, Sam.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for having me
fountain
again.
of
Appreciate
knowledge.
it.
Yeah.
As always.
Yeah.
And next week we are doing, in our last and final show of season 5,
Yes, what are we doing?
the observation peak for our cocktail. And we're talking about success stories of season 5 in real estate. So you guys are going to get to hear and listen to all the amazing things that we did over the year.
Gotta start working on those.
And all the wonderful moments that we had with our clients and on the show and all that kind of stuff. So please make sure to feel free to join us for our very, very last show where we give away
This
our
is
prize.
our prize. We giving away 2 stainless steel, like margarita martini kind of glasses with the straws. Keeps your drink cold. It's not a glass, so it's easy to take with you on patio or to the lake.
I think that would fit our new cocktail we made today perfectly.
Yes, and also we giving away one of our newest swag hats. Golfing season. It's Robin Moser and Associates Tipsy Realtor logo on your hats. Super cute. I'm planning to use mine tomorrow. I'm doing a golf tournament. So, and if you guys put your name, if you tag your friends, if you're showing out some extra love, obviously on Facebook Live, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, and TikTok, and you comment what kind of drinks you want to see in season 6 or what kind of topics you want to hear in season 6, your name gets entered twice.
Yeah, if you comment 2 times, so every time you enter, your name goes in for the draw.
Yeah, and for all the comments, you get 2 entries instead of 1.
Absolutely.
And we would like to award with a new hat to Sam.
Thank you
And
very
Sam,
much.
I have to say, I was actually very, very impressed with these hats.
Wow.
With these, this is for your glasses.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I know,
There
right?
you go.
Or you can put your tea in there if you're a
Try it
golfer.
on,
You
see
can
if
put
it's-
tea.
Oh,
Yeah.
there
yeah.
you go.
Look at
See,
that.
it looks good on you.
Good for golf season.
Yeah,
There you
excellent.
go.
Yeah. Now you can say why are you putting 2 sexy ladies on your head? I was like, it's a 2 very tipsy realtors. Anyway, join us for the last show next Wednesday. You don't want to miss it. We will be doing the draw of the prize and then saying goodbye for the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
thank you, everyone. We'll see you next Wednesday. And remember, if you have any friends, family, coworkers, people you like, people you don't like, neighbors that are looking to buy or sell a home, feel free to have them give us a call, because we want to make sure that they make the best decision possible, at least best informed decision possible. So please make sure that they give us a call, because we really do want to make sure that they have all the information in front of them, what they know and what they don't know, they don't know.
Yeah. Thanks for watching,
Thanks,
guys.
bye.
Thank you.